Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to At the Book here on this beautiful Thursday, first Thursday in November here in 2021. And that means the football season is, well, it's more than halfway over in college football. It's getting to halfway over in the NFL, and we're rolling, baby. This is the first At the Book we've had since sports betting has become legal, since there are actually books in Louisiana. So Sunday at Harrah's New Orleans, they opened up the sports book also up at their property in Bossier City. Those are the Caesar sports books. And then LaBerge and Baton Rouge and Boomtown and Harvey both opened up on Monday, and there's probably more to come. I think there's one in the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles. I think I read is going to open up next week, and probably some more coming after that. So we actually have books to talk about, and we will be at the book soon enough. Live, this show will be from Harrah's New Orleans, the Caesar Sportsbook there every week. And so we were getting ready for that and excited for that. And in the meantime, we're excited to talk to you folks again. Devin Jackson and Jim Derry are here with me on bet.NOLA.com. Guys, what's going on?
Just another exciting week, and I'm just glad I'm slowly catching up. I can't catch up to Devin. It's not going to happen, but
Devin's lap field, man.
My goal is to pass you by Christmas.
You know, on Monday you were talking some smack though about, or maybe it was Tuesday when we were talking on Datitude on the podcast, but like,
that was Monday.
I'm within $200 of you. It's still $300.
I lost the Monday night game. I lost the Monday night game. It would have been 200 had I won. Had I not taken the lowly stinking Chiefs, it would have been 200.
I will say I've lost more than $100 in big bucks 3 straight weeks. Devin, that's a foreign concept to you, I know, but it's a bad
75 or more in 3 straight weeks. So,
and that just means that I'm due for a good week and you're due for a bad week. So let's see what happens. Devin, the man who is never due for a bad week, how are you?
Doing well. Can't complain on this Thursday. But yeah, I mean, it was a good week for me in the big bucks. So
again,
can't complain.
I thought, what, you go 8-2 again, or 7-2, or whatever it was again. I mean, it's incredible every week. So I just took the strategy this week of copying all of Devin's picks, Jim. So you're in trouble.
I copied one of them.
No, I think I actually have one the same as Devin and one the same as you, and I'm also fading you on one of them. So that's just the way it worked out. I did them independently. So anyway, before we get real heavy into football here, and there's plenty to talk about, the World Series did end on Tuesday night. Congratulations to the Atlanta Braves and their fans for the World Series championship, their first one in 26 years. And Devin, this is like the one time in your lifetime you can like act like you're a big baseball fan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of my friends and people I went to school with, they're excited. They're going to the parade on Friday because that's when it's slated to happen. So I'm sure I'll see plenty of videos all over social media celebrating the win. But yeah, it was exciting. My little brother actually went to went downtown to watch the game. So he was able to celebrate with everyone else. So it was very fun to watch that happen and see the city of Atlanta finally get a major team win something, because we know what's happened in the past with that.
There were so many 28-3 jokes going on in the middle of that game on Twitter. It was like, oh, an Atlanta team's up big halfway through a game in Houston, huh? No way this can go wrong. But it didn't. They held on. So, and I think unless you're a Houston Astros fan, and I know there are plenty of them in Louisiana, so my apologies to you. But unless I actually don't really care for either team, the Braves or the Astros. But if you're not an Astros fan, you were rooting for the Braves in that one, I think, Jim.
Yeah, Dusty Baker is not Bill Belichick. So there you go. I'm a Cubs fan, and I saw Dusty Baker plenty in my life. I think he's a nice man. No one chews a toothpick better than Dusty Baker. But, I am not an Astros fan at all. I grew up watching the Braves and Cubs. I've always had a soft spot for the Braves. It's probably the only Atlanta team I can deal with. I was happy to see them win. I love the way Ozzie Albies plays. You got to love Freddie Freeman. What they did with all their injuries and faced adversity. And I tweeted out Tuesday night that I truly believe this. It's probably not probably. It's up there with one of the more improbable championships in the history of professional sports. To look where Atlanta came, what you could have got them at in August. They were dead to rights. No one gave them a chance. And you know what? Their GM made some big moves in the outfield. And Brian Snitker, a UNO alum, it was great to see a guy that has New Orleans ties, and Ron Washington, who is from New Orleans, born and raised. Love that dude, and he needs to get a managerial spot before he gets too old. But
yeah,
it was fun to watch.
I mean, to your point, I went to a Braves game in late July. I was just there on sort of a little mini vacation with my family, and we got tickets to Braves Padres. And I went with a friend of mine who lives in Atlanta, who is a Padres fan. He's from San Diego. And we're sitting there discussing the Padres' chances at catching the Dodgers. Right. And, hey, did they have enough to make a playoff run? And blah, 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 blah. And the Braves won the game 2-1. And, crowd gets kind of excited. And you're thinking, wow, they're still buried in the standings. They lost Ronnie Acuna. They're not going anywhere. This goes to show you, man, in baseball, if you get in the dance, you have a chance. And that's true for any sport. But, if you're the 8th seed in the NBA, you don't really have a chance. But if you're the bottom seed in the baseball playoffs, listen, the Braves won the 13th most games in baseball this year. They won 88 games. I mean, like, my Seattle Mariners won 90 and are sitting at home. The Blue Jays won 91 and we're sitting at home. So, but the point is, if you get in, you have a chance to kind of catch some magic and make a run. So that's why.
Exactly. I remember as a Cubs fan, 2003, which hurts my heart. The Florida Marlins were the bottom seed in the National League. And look, we won't talk about the weird things that happened to the Cubs in that series, but not only did the Marlins win the NLCS, but then they went on and beat the Yankees in the World Series. So you're right. Baseball is different than basketball, and that's one of the things I love about it. Anyone that gets in the baseball playoffs is a really good team, and they all have a legitimate chance. That's why I like playing higher baseball odds. You can make some money. You can get some great prices in baseball in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, my poster example for this is 2001. Again, I'm a Mariners fan. They won 116 games and crashed out against, I think the Yankees won 89 that year. But they won their division. Right. They got in. And in a short series for 6 games, they were the better team. They weren't over 160, but that didn't matter. So that's what I'm going to bring up the next slide. This is Caesar Sportsbook odds for next year's World Series. And so to your point, Jim, there is some value to be had. I don't see betting on favorites because the best team doesn't even probably win half the time. I mean, we actually went through a stretch in baseball the last 3 or 4 years where the best team was winning more often than not. The Dodgers last year, I think the Red Sox in 2018 had the best record. The Astros in 2016. Yeah, the Astros and Dodgers were real close in 2017. I can't recall who had more wins, but they were the 2 best teams and made it to the World Series. The Dodgers are the favorite. We know they're going to spend the money. They've got the best farm system. I don't see betting that at those odds. You see the Astros at 7-1, but the Astros are getting a little bit older. Alex Bregman looks like he's aged some. I think he may have been playing with an injury. They may lose Carlos Correa to free agency. And then the Braves to repeat 9-1. They get Acuna back. Is there something on this board that you like at this point? Because I have one in mind, Jim, and I'll let you go first.
I have 2 actually, and 2 that jump out at me. The White Sox and the Brewers at those prices are just incredible prices. The White Sox are probably they're a fairly young team except for a couple of their boppers, but they have a pretty good pitching staff, and you got to think they're going to add on. I think at 12-1, they're an outstanding play. As much as I hate to say it, being a Cubs fan, and speaking of being a Cubs fan, as much as I dislike the Brewers, I don't see a lot of competition for them in that division. I think the Cardinals are going to take a step backwards, and there's nobody else in that division I like. Already, the Reds are starting to break up a little bit. Nick Castellanos, he's not coming back. I love the Brewers at 16-1 because I think they're going to be a shoo-in to win the division.
Yeah, I mean, I like both those picks because the White Sox are the same way. Those teams are getting into the playoffs almost certainly. The White Sox had a bunch of injuries this year and still won the AL Central by 8 games. So if they're a little bit healthier, they should cruise into the playoffs. But I'll tell you the team I like better than anything at the odds on there is the team that outside of the Dodgers and maybe the Astros has been the most consistent contender in the regular season and the playoffs over the past 5 to 6 years, and we forgot about them because they lost in the first round this year. But you're telling me I can get 14-1 on the Tampa Bay Rays?
Yeah.
They're always good. They're always good. They always have young players coming in. Wander Franco is going to be there for a full season. So you're telling me I get better odds than an average playoff team on the Rays at 14-1? Please give it to me. I'll at least get into a spot where I can hedge.
And also, Zach, with the Rays, the way they handle their pitching staff is perfect for the playoffs because they do what people do in the playoffs during the regular season. So they're better prepared for the playoffs than anyone. I agree with you. I think that's also a good price. So it's great value. I would stay away from all 4 of the top 4 teams.
It's awkward. Really, and I need to throw this out here because we're staring a work stoppage in baseball in the face. The collective bargaining agreement ends on December 1st. So one thing that's going to affect free agency, right? The free agent market might be real slow. We might not know who is going where among the big stars until even February. And then the other thing is we don't know what the playoffs are going to look like. Are they going to stick at 10-team playoffs? Are they going to be 12-team playoffs? Are they going to be 14, 16? They're going to expand the playoffs in some form or fashion, and we won't know how many, and we won't know how important it is to be a division winner, or are they just going to go straight record, which would help a team like the Rays because they don't have to mess with winning the division over the Yankees and Red Sox. So I would actually refrain from these odds at this point. They're fun to look at. I'd wait until we know what the system is and which players are going where. Maybe you get lucky with some long odds, but it's going to be a weird offseason in baseball. So.
And I don't think that there's going to be a ton of – usually when you have these kind of weird years, we saw it in the COVID year, there's not a lot of free agency movement because teams are less inclined to spend a lot of money. So you won't see as much movement. The teams that are good this year are probably going to be good again next year. And they'll always be a surprise team. Maybe the Padres because they don't have to do a lot of things. They're going to have a new manager next year, and so I also like them. They faded in the last month and a half, but they had a lot of injuries, especially Tatis was having issues with Machado and all that stuff. But that could be another team. But yeah, I think all the teams that were good this year are probably going to be good again next year, and likewise, all the teams that were bad, the Chicago Cubs, they'll probably be bad again.
Yeah, it's become a thing in baseball and other sports too, but especially in baseball where you don't sign free agents until you are ready to contend. And so that's part of it.
It's our weekly losing of Zach, Devin. I know what do you think about your Braves going into next year. You got to think if you're playing for the Braves and you really like them, that they're in a great spot to be good again, right?
Yeah, I mean, they got plenty of young players. Obviously, you get Acuna back as well. And to think they did all that without him, kind of leading the way, I think that makes them even more scary for next year. They kind of put it together towards the end of the season, and if they can, carry that momentum, I think you're talking about them as a potential top seed next year in the playoffs. So, and they showed that they can play well at home in the playoffs too. So they're definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with when it comes to postseason time.
I think that this was the computer god's way of telling me it's time to talk about football. I have no other explanation for why this keeps happening to me. It doesn't happen any other time. I don't lose internet connection. All of a sudden, I don't know what it is.
It's better to happen with us. It's better to happen with us than with Carville or Wingo. That's all I'll say.
That's true. That's true. Speaking of James Carville, we'll get to him in a second. The football weekend starts tonight. I guess we're like contractually obligated to show this. This is the type of game that bolsters Devin's argument that they should just abolish Thursday night football. The Jets play the Colts tonight. I can't even get into this from a gambling perspective. I will say I'm a little surprised the line is that high, considering the Jets just beat Cincinnati. And I know Indianapolis is playing pretty well and is desperate, but 10.5 is a lot of points.
I don't think it's enough. I think the Jets, they look like once a month they're going to pull one out of their keisters and just like be this gangbuster team. But Mike White, you're betting on Mike White because he had a good week last week.
That's true.
The Colts are probably the best bad football team in the league, if that makes any sense. They're certainly among the better of the mediocre. They've had a brutal schedule, an absolutely brutal schedule the first half of the season. And honestly, it doesn't get that much better going into the second half. So if they're going to have any chance going forward to look, here's your chance, right? The Titans don't have Derrick Henry, and I'm sure we'll get to that later. But if you're going to make any run at the division, and the AFC is bad enough to where a 9-win team might make the playoffs, the Colts got to win this one. And I think they're going to come out and be charged up. And they're at home again on a short week, gives them a major advantage. The Jets expelled all their energy. I love the Colts tonight, and I love the Colts to win. I think they can win by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's not a bad point. Devin, real quick, your take on this game, because we've already talked about Jets Colts too much already, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is another argument why we don't need Thursday night football. Honestly, the two of the primetime slates this week is certainly questionable. Not even this one, but the Monday night one too. But I think the Colts, like you said, Jim, they're the best worst team in the NFL. Like, they do everything to win a game, but then they find a way to just throw it away. I mean, they had the Titans
Literally
in the corner last week, and they just threw the game away. So I definitely expect the Colts to win big tonight. I think the Jets, they're a team that will win unlikely games. I don't think this is one of them. And I don't expect Mike White to continue his success that he had on Sunday.
Zach, let me ask you real quick. I wrote in my NFL picks column. Doesn't it pain you whether you don't care about the Colts, like the Colts, dislike the Colts, whatever? Doesn't it pain you when Wentz just like pull some really fluky, stupid, dumb play, shuffling it to the other? It pains you to watch that, doesn't it? Stop.
He's one of those guys. He's one of those guys where if you don't have a rooting interest, he's just so frustrating to watch because you can see the talent. You can see the talent. Like 4 out of 5 plays, he's like, yeah, this could work. This is the guy who was, on track to win the MVP in 2017 before he tore his ACL. And then all of a sudden, you're right. It's like a Mark Sanchez play every 5 plays or something. So what are you doing? So we'll see. Maybe he'll eventually grow out of that. I don't know. But we don't make James Carville pick the Thursday night games anyway. We wouldn't have made him pick that one. But let's get into his picks for this week with Cashin and with Carville. You can play by going to NOLA.com/cashin. It's a new month, new prizes for November. Make your picks, 8 picks a week against James Carville. And if you beat him for the month, you win prizes. If you're one of our top finishers for the whole season, which if you haven't played yet, it's too late for that. But you can throw 2 weeks out. So if you've played, fell off the wagon, you're coming back, come back and play. NOLA.com/cashin. Here's James Carville's picks for this week. Cashing in with Carville for week 9, November the 4th here in 2021, and James Carville is here with us. It's an interesting week, James. We had a lot of injuries in the NFL, a lot of upsets in college football, and the season really kind of starting to take shape here.
Well, it's November. We started out, we had a good September, we had a bad October, so just in the zig and zag of sports betting, I think we're getting ready to be hot here. So right. Let's look at where we are here. Wake Forest is undefeated, right?
That's right. We have
my friend Al Hunt's, he went to the game last week. They've never had top 10 team, and they're going to play North Carolina. North Carolina's actually a favorite, 2.5. That tells you to take North Carolina.
Well, we're taking the Tar Heels.
We're taking the Tar Heels.
When I started this, I did not think Wake Forest would be one of the games of the week I'd be picking, but here we are again, the surprises of college football.
There's hope for Tulane.
All right. Yeah, there's still hope. Next up in the Big Ten, in West Lafayette, Indiana, Purdue, another team we might not have been expecting to pick. They're only a 3-point dog against undefeated Michigan State coming into town.
You know what they called them when I was your age? The spoiler makers.
Ooh.
Take the spoiler makers.
I like that. I've never heard that before.
No. They would beat Notre Dame every now and then.
Yeah. I've heard the you'll be working for us one day chant, but never the spoiler makers. So
yeah, that's one of the great nicknames in college sport, the Boilermakers.
That's fantastic. So we're taking the Boilers. All right. And in the SEC now, for our last game of the day, Auburn at Texas A&M. It's the Aggies by 4.5. A couple teams, probably the losers out, the winner's still in the race.
The home team is going to be still in the race.
All
And
right.
more than 4.5.
By more than 4.5. And real quick, just to touch James on LSU at Alabama. I mean, I guess if there's a will, there's a way, but it's going to be tough.
28.5. My daughter's getting married on Saturday, but she's getting married at 3:30, so at Eastern time. So, I'm sure if the game is tight, we'll gather around the TV. If it goes as the odds maker think it goes, we won't have much to look forward to. But, the guys they got a lot of pride, and we got some good athletes, and one hopes.
Well, congratulations to at least for another couple of days, Miss Carville. And
we're very excited.
We'll see if that LSU Alabama game is worth turning on at the reception or
grad
not.
student at LSU.
All right. So it's
creative writing.
If she had to pick a Saturday in the fall, this was probably the one to pick.
A lot of guests are thanking me.
All right, moving on to the NFL. You faded the Bengals a couple of weeks ago against the Ravens, and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase burned you bad. So they are 2.5-point favorites at home in another division matchup, this time against Cleveland.
I hope they win by 1.
That means you're taking the Browns, I take it.
Deduction.
All right. Taking the Browns, but we're hoping for a Bengals win by 1 or 2. And then we get into the injuries here on these other picks. The Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites against the Packers. This line has been all over the place, but it moved up big to Kansas City when Aaron Rodgers is out on the COVID list. He will not play. He's unvaccinated, won't be able to play no matter what happens with negative tests. So the Chiefs now big favorites by more than a touchdown.
I did. When that game was picked 'em, I liked the Chiefs. But 7.5 is a lot of freaking points. I mean, I know Aaron Rodgers, is a lot, but I'm kind of going to stick with the Chiefs.
Stick with the Chiefs.
A lot of points. It looks like they might be, they got talent. Let's just stick with them.
All right. Jordan Love's first career start for Green Bay. He'll fill in for Aaron Rodgers.
Look what the Saints did, I mean, over a season, you sure wouldn't like something like this, but for one game, sometimes I've seen it where they just rally around.
Yeah, and we'll get to the Saints in just a second because that's a good segue. But first off, the Sunday night football game, Titans at Rams. And again, a big injury here. Derrick Henry out at least several weeks for the Titans. He's obviously the best running back in the NFL. And the Rams signed Von Miller from the Broncos, so the defense gets that much better. And this line went from 4 or 5 points to 7.5 when those two things happened.
I'll take the dog.
We'll take the dog at plus 7.5.
Again, I agree with you. I don't think anyone disagrees that Derrick Henry is not the best one. I don't know. I think Alvin Kamara might not be just as good as Derrick Henry.
He's different. Yeah, he's different.
Yeah, more versatile. I mean, he probably doesn't run with the power Henry does, but if I had to draft one of them, I think I'd take Kamara.
I mean, I think people think Derrick Henry eventually would break down. Injuries happen to anybody. Is this the start of his breakdown with his workload? Who knows?
I mean, that's like being a running back in the freaking NFL. I mean, it's unbelievable the punishment those guys take.
No doubt about it. And speaking of punishment, I was in the Dome on Sunday, an incredible victory for the Saints. Right after sports betting started in Louisiana. It was a great day in New Orleans. But in your eyes, was this a Pyrrhic victory to lose Jameis Winston for the season on a day you beat the Buccaneers?
Well, it's not good at all. But remember, we got Hill coming back too. Mm-hmm. And there was some competition for the job. All right. And it looks like this guy's competent. He probably can, Coach Payton can use him some. I'm told, we don't know how accurate this is, but pretty knowledgeable people are not out shopping for another quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, there are free agents out there. Cam Newton is probably the biggest name free agent out there.
Phillip Rivers, he's old as I am.
Phillip Rivers is out there.
And I don't think, just given I don't think they're going to try to trade for Deshaun Watson.
I would not think so. And especially the Texans have come out and said they're keeping him. So that's
Right. Now, but
Yeah.
the Saints are very, some guys that have some of these issues that are really good athletes, they're not very high on that profile. And I
No.
don't want them.
You're right about that. Well, James, we appreciate the time this week. We know it's a big weekend for the
Always
family.
fun and a big week, but we're out of October and we're into November and we're returning to our September roots here.
The scary season is over, and we'll get back to the fall. We wish you a good weekend,
Absolutely.
and congratulations to your daughter.
Thank you. Very excited. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week. Okay, so that was James Carville's picks for the week. Congratulations to him and his family, his daughter getting married this weekend. You could tell he was in a little bit of a rush this week, but he got through all those picks. Again, if you want to play Cashin' In with Carville, you can go to NOLA.com/cashin-in for your chance to win a November prize or a season-long prize. Okay, we talked about Jets Colts. I want a solemn promise between the three of us. We're not mentioning it again tonight. It's Super Bowl III rematch. It's much less interesting than that. That's it.
You won't hear nothing from me.
And if you want to get that out of your system, there's another game you could watch tonight. As a Louisianan, the UL Ragin' Cajuns are playing, and they are on track to win the Sun Belt West Division, trying to keep that rolling. 6:30 tonight. They are almost 2-touchdown favorites. They got the hook in their favor against Georgia State. This is interesting. I actually kind of like the under on this game, guys. Billy Napier tends to get conservative in games where he's big favorites. And I think UL will win comfortably. I don't know about the spread, but I do think it stays under the total. Radio silence. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I will say that here's a perfect example, anti-Devin's point. If there were no Thursday night NFL, I don't care how bad it is, I'd be forced to watch the Ragin' Cajuns against Georgia State because I'm desperate, and I'm glad I'm not that desperate.
If there was no NFL Thursday Night Football, my argument would be that there will be more college games, and so you might have better options too. But we'll see. To be honest, as a Louisiana football fan, you don't have great college options this week anyway because LSU is playing Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Now, that's for years and years and years, ever since Nick Saban got to Alabama, really, this has been one of the games of the year in college football. But this is 2 straight years now where it's just looks like a complete mismatch. And that was the case last year. I believe it was actually the same spread last year, 28.5 points, and Alabama won 55-17 at Tiger Stadium, so they covered. This one's 28.5 points in Tuscaloosa. I know we talked about it Monday, Jim, and you said you actually liked LSU to cover here.
I do. This is not the same Alabama team. Probably like the over more than I like the spread itself. I think LSU is probably going to score 3 touchdowns or so. So I mean, 21 and 28 doesn't equal 67, but I think it's a higher scoring game. And I like LSU to keep it fairly close for a little while. And maybe even later if it gets big, a backdoor cover or something along those lines. But look, Alabama, again, I know they're number 2 in the college football playoff ranking. I'm not so sure they're not going to lose to Auburn later. I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they are. In fact, I know they're not as good as everybody thinks they are. Bryce Young is not lived up to Heisman expectations, and I know he's only a freshman, so give him a chance.
He's the Heisman favorite. What do you mean? He's the Heisman favorite.
Because he plays for Alabama.
Well, his numbers are good too.
His numbers are okay. Not for a Heisman one. I mean, you can't tell me that he's the best player in college football. He's not. But that's another story. Anyway, back to LSU. They tend to play better in games like this. They didn't last year, but Alabama was a dominating team last year. I just think that LSU is going to hang tight for a little while. I do think that they lose handily, but not by more than that. Hook also is a gift to me. You got to win by more than 4 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to happen.
I will say this: the money will come in on Alabama nationally, but
right.
and maybe you could even see in Louisiana because people are like, this LSU team. There's no way that you could see some of that sort of emotional fade money coming in too. So Jim Derry throwing shade on Alabama and on Bryce Young, the Heisman favorite, saying they're not that good. Devin, what says you?
I'm gonna disagree with that. Alabama has a point to prove at this point. I know they're ranked number 2 in the college football playoff ranking, but Nick Saban, he's going to do what it takes to stick it to LSU. And this is a game that I think is going to get ugly really quick. LSU's down, I believe, now 3 of their top corners. So there's not going to be much resistance from the secondary. Offensively, I mean, Max Johnson is going to do what he can, but I think ultimately this game gets out of hand. I think LSU has a chance at a backdoor cover, but I think this game is going to get ugly real quick.
Yeah,
There you have
I
it,
mean,
the Bible.
Yeah. If Devin likes a game on college football, you're in trouble if you're fading him.
Yep.
I do think 28.5 is a lot of points, and this is why you don't mess. Like my school, Missouri's 38.5 point dog at Georgia this week. 38.5 points. Missouri's 0-8 against the spread. They're the only team in the country that hasn't won a single game against the spread. But 38.5. I mean, you get one garbage touchdown, and Georgia's got to score 46 points to cover. Now they might, but like that, messing with these big spreads is really, really, really difficult. So I don't know,
and all the people the casual bettors who don't go into these things like we do, and look at different things. I mean, they're automatically going to bet Alabama and they're automatically going to bet Georgia because they don't care what the spread is. They're going to bet those teams no matter what. And when we get our little thing from Caesars on Saturday morning, I would be willing to. I'd be more inclined to bet the money on Alabama, or the tickets on Alabama and Georgia will be well over 80% than I will on taking LSU in the points. I mean, the tickets are going to be way over 80% on both of those teams.
But the money will be lower, is what you're saying. Yeah. The money will be more, if not more than 50% on the dog, at least less than the tickets are. So I agree with that. Usually those favorites get a lot of public tickets. And sometimes, listen, the public's right sometimes, because if they weren't, they would stop betting. But it's a balancing act, and sometimes the spread is just too high. Speaking of spreads that might be too high, on Sunday the Saints are back in action, and they are -6 against the Falcons. And the number I want to circle here is the over/under, which was, I think it opened at like 44 this week, and it's been steadily moving down. It's now all the way down to 42. I don't, like if you're going to cover 6 points with an over/under of 42, you can only give up, I'll do the quick math in my head here, like 17 points? Or you're not going to cover. And so they're really relying on the Saints defense in this game. And maybe that happens, but it just seems like a lot of points in this game with no Jameis Winston. We don't know what the Saints' plan at quarterback is. Devin, you're the Atlanta guy. We'll let you go first here. What are your thoughts?
Saints, Falcons, they're always tight games. Like it just doesn't matter what the record is or anything like that. And I mean, the Saints aren't going to have Jameis Winston. I know they won twice last year. I believe twice last year with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
3 times, I think, actually. Yeah.
We'll see.
Although, I'm sorry, Devin. One was the Denver Broncos quarterback-less game that doesn't even really count in my mind. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I know that it can be done, but I just don't like the Saints to cover the 6-point spread. I mean, they have to be coming out firing all cylinders. And we haven't seen their offense really do that with Jameis Winston, let alone, with Trevor Siemian. He was able to make plays like down the stretch of the game, and, obviously got him in position to score a couple touchdowns. But I just don't believe that the Saints are going to cover that 6-point spread. I think this is a game that is going to be tightly contested, and Saints are going to have to pull it out in the fourth quarter to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, Jim, I think the Saints should be on outright upset alert after the injuries they've had, the emotional week they've had, and a rival coming in.
I've talked about it all week long. This is not a good spot for the Saints. It's not a good spot for Atlanta either. They're dealing with their own issues. Calvin Ridley is gone for a few weeks, dealing with some personal issues. But the Saints, again, you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. It's probably going to be Siemian, you would think. At this point, it'll be Taysom later, but I think this is a Siemian game. This is going to have to be won by defense, like Devin said. I don't know that I agree that the offense hasn't been playing well, because I think they've improved steadily. But again, that is under Jameis, and they're going to have to revamp this whole game plan now and change their offense a little bit. I don't think the Saints will lose, although it wouldn't surprise me if they lost. But I think everybody's going to be betting on, again, the casual better. Not when I say everybody, I don't necessarily mean the sharps. The casual wake up in the morning and let me see what I like. Oh, the Saints are only 6-point favorites. They beat Tampa Bay last week. There's going to be a lot of money, a lot of tickets on the Saints, and I don't like them this week. I probably stay away from it. I like more, and we'll get into it in a minute. It's one of my big bucks picks. I much prefer the under because this is going to have to be one with defense, and I could easily see this being a 16-13, 20-16 kind of game.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the Monday night game in Seattle to a certain extent where the Saints are just trying to survive. And to that end, Jameis Winston's out for the season. We just learned the other day Michael Thomas also out for the season. The Saints did not trade for a quarterback or a wide receiver by the deadline. There's still free agents out there. It looks like Odell Beckham might be on his way out of Cleveland, and maybe if he clears waivers, a team like this, it was reported they talked to the Browns about trading for him. So maybe if the salary is off the table, they would take a flyer on Odell. Or Cam Newton's out there, but anyway, it looks right now like they're going to go to battle here with Taysom Hill, with Trevor Siemian, with Marquez Callaway, with Deontay Harris, with Traquan Smith. What do we think long-term prognosis for the Saints here if that's the case? Obviously, the defense is tremendous. They've got one of the best running backs in the NFL in Alvin Kamara. They've got a good offensive line. So this is a very strong team outside of those sort of key skill positions. I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on what the long-term outlook is here.
I don't think it's any different than it was before. I'm sorry, Devin. I don't. I just you talk about what Jameis Winston was progressing, okay? It was work in progress. And I think he had finally got to the point of where he was feeling comfortable. But if they went 5-2 and frankly should have been 6-1 over the stretch and some tough games involved in there with the way that, Jameis is learning on the fly, Taysom has been in this offense for quite a few years now, knows it as well as anybody. He's not as good as Jameis Winston, but he knows the offense better than Jameis Winston. I think he'll be adequate enough. I never thought this was a Super Bowl team. I still don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but I don't think they're any worse than they were last year. I mean, Drew Brees can throw the ball over 20 yards. It is what it is. I think they're a 10-win type. I thought they were a 9 or 10-win team before the season. I still think they're a 9 or 10-win type team, and I think they'll find a way to make it into the playoffs. And they're a lose in the first or second round kind of team, just like they were last year.
Devin?
I think their ceiling is at least the divisional round of the playoffs because their defense is just good enough for them to win games throughout the season, and they've showed that already. I don't think this is a team to expect a deep playoff run from. I mean, obviously with the injuries and the changes at quarterback from the beginning of the season to now, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to win more than one playoff game. But I think this is a team that's still very competitive. Even if they lose in the playoffs, I think they'll give any team a good fight. I mean, they already beat the Bucs, and they're considered one of the best teams in the NFL. They still have to play the Bills later this month, so we'll see how they fare against them. But Sean Payton is always going to have this team ready to play, and I think they're still going to be a dangerous team, even if they don't necessarily have a dynamic offense. So they're a team you don't want to play in the later months because of how tough they are and how well they defend defensively.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, to me, Taysom Hill is the X factor because he's the one guy who has the talent to make a difference at quarterback. But the question is, has he developed enough as a passer? Is he healthy enough? Can he stay healthy enough with the way he plays? And that's the big question. But as far as the playoffs go, I mean, if you look at the NFC, there are 5 tremendous teams in the NFC. 5 teams, probably 5 of the 6 top teams in the NFL right now are in the NFC. You throw the Bills in from the AFC, and then you have Rams, Buccaneers, Cowboys, help me out, Cardinals,
Green Bay,
and Packers. Yeah, and then the 16, there's 7 teams that make the playoffs, right? Clearly, the 6th best team in the NFC is the Saints right now. And then somebody else, even on top of that, is going to have to make it in that 7th spot, and that's going to be the Seahawks when they get Russell Wilson back, or the 49ers, or maybe Minnesota or Carolina gets hot. Somebody's got to get that 7th spot. And we're not even – the Saints, I think, are pretty clearly the 6th best team. And, yes, they still have to play –
You say that, and the Saints, if they win this week, they are number 1 in the NFC South because they will have the same record as Tampa Bay, and they will have beaten Tampa Bay. So you could say they're the 6th best team, but I don't know if that's the case or not.
I believe if they win and they get help from a couple other places, they could be in the spot in the number 1 seed in the NFC. I think they would need Arizona to lose for sure, and maybe Dallas to lose too. But they could be the number 1 seed in the NFC after this week. But I don't know about that going forward. As Devin mentioned, they still got to play the Bills, still got to play the Cowboys, still got to play the Bucs again. There are tough games, but there's also games 2 against Atlanta. They play Carolina again. They have the Jets. They have the Dolphins. The Titans are sort of in between, but they have a lot of games where you say, yeah, they're going to have a tough time winning that game, but they also have a lot of games where you say they're going to be favored by 5, 6, 7 points in those games and have a good shot to rack up some more wins. And that's all it's going to take to make the playoffs.
Well, Sean Payton is 11-2 as an underdog the last, I think, 3 or 4 years. So the Saints play better and have historically played better against good teams. And there are plenty of good teams left on this schedule. Devin talked about Buffalo. The Saints also play Dallas. So really they could put themselves in a position to where even if they end up in a tiebreaker, they could be in a really good position. If they are able to beat Dallas, then they will have beaten Dallas, Tampa Bay, and Green Bay.
And they get Dallas. Sorry, Jim, they get Dallas and Buffalo at home as well. So
right.
They will have a chance in those games, you would think. Let's play big bucks before we go now. Going back to last week, wash, rinse, and repeat. Devin Jackson, another good week, plus 136. I singled out the pick that you bet on the most money for $40. It occurs to me looking back through our spreadsheet of all our picks, Devin, you could be up a lot more than $500 if you don't put as much money on these games as Jim does. But it's whatever strategy you have is working out for you.
Yeah, for me, I try to just do a moderate amount every week, unless I feel really confident about the game. I think I only bet like 55 once or twice this year, but usually I keep it between like 20 and 40 just to get the small increases. Because for me, I was thinking about the season long thing because I want to get more, like even if it's small increases, it's still more money. So that's kind of my strategy with playing this. Like I don't want to go up or put up like $150, $200 and then I lose all of it, and all of a sudden I lose what I gained from the week prior. So
that's the problem. That's the problem right now, is that you've gotten hot with moderate bet amounts. The second that you go up big and get overconfident, that's when betting karma gets you and you lose. Just like you said, you throw it all back. Oh yeah, I'm getting pretty good at this. I got a good read on college football this year. Here's a couple $200 bets. Whoops, there goes that. Jim Derry might know a little bit about that.
I'm actually the opposite. I have trouble controlling myself when I'm in a hole, and I think that a couple of good bets are going to get me out of the hole, which is why that I'm where I am. I think if you probably look at my, and I haven't figured it out, so I don't know this, but I would be willing to bet if you took the number of bets I made and just figured out what my record is, it's probably pretty close to even or maybe a little bit ahead. And that 1 week where I threw bad money at worse money kind of bit me in the butt. I generally bet these things like I would bet them in real life. I loved the Saints last week. It was one of my plays of the year. I thought it was a great spot for the Saints. James, now who'd have thunk that Trevor Siemian would play 2/3 of a game and the Saints would win by 9, but they did. But it's because the Saints defense matches up well with Tom Brady, and the Saints will be big dogs at Tampa Bay, and I'll probably take the Saints again. So there are certain games that I really like, and I'll play a little bit more on. But I'm usually in the same ballpark as Devin. I don't bet a lot on multiple games. I take the ones I really like, and I'll put a little bit more on them. But I think I only had one this year where I put like 120 on a teaser or something like that, and it bit me in the butt. So, but overall, my general philosophy in this game is to bet like I would normally bet.
Yeah, and then same here. I'm a grinder in real life, and that's how I try to play these. I don't think I've gone over $55 on any one bet. And of course, one of the $55 ones was that godforsaken Packers Cardinals over. Don't get me started again.
Ouch.
Move on to the next slide. I can't even look at it. Best bets for week 9. Devin, you're going another total. You nailed Nevada UNLV last week. How about a Utah Stanford under 54?
This just feels like a just grind out game that's going to end in like 20-17, 27-17. These teams, neither of them are dynamic offensively. Stanford still plays football like it's the 1990s. So I think that this is a pretty good bet between these two teams. Neither of them are incredibly explosive.
Did you hear that, Jim? He said 1990s like it was so long ago.
I know.
That's
That's
hurtful.
You know what's sad? It's like you were talking about the Braves earlier, and about Devin not being around or not remembering it for sure. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday. It was, Tommy Glavine and John Smoltz and Greg Maddox and that team. It's like, oh. And I mean,
I was only 11, but I remember it. I remember that World Series.
I was out of college already. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, I think.
All right, old man. What's your favorite pick this week?
Look, I've been doing well with teasers. You're going to get that root beer ready. And I think I've won 3 or 4 in a row. And I really like this one. This is one that I like. I probably should have put more on it than I put on it. But you're telling me that Miami's only got to beat Houston straight up and Pittsburgh's only got to beat Chicago straight up, both of them at home. I know Miami is a one-win team, but Houston just doesn't care. I mean, they look like they're in the running for the they want to win the NFL first pick. And so I love Miami this week. I love both of these teams to cover, and I especially like them in the teaser, hence what I have here. And again, with the teaser, you get 6 points both ways, and they only need to win. Yeah,
that's the way to play a teaser too. For those who are thinking about it, it's like you want to tease a line that is going to get you to a key number, right? Like either get you to -2.5 or -6.5, or in this case, this becomes a money line parlay where you just need these teams to win. And clearly, they're going to play to win.
And money-wise, if you did a money line parlay on these two teams, it would cost you way more. So a teaser is the way to go with this. You would get here. You only have to put down 60 to 150. If you did a money line parlay, it'd be more on the lines of like 80 to 150 with their odds. So you're better off doing a teaser.
Yeah. And then my best bet's Texas A&M to beat Auburn. I think, a lot of people were on Auburn last week against Ole Miss. I was one of them, and they covered that game. But now they're going on the road, and I really feel like A&M's figured it out. I think A&M is the team that's waiting in the wings. If Alabama slips up again, guess who goes to the SEC championship game? It's Texas A&M. And so because they hold that head-to-head tiebreaker with Alabama. So they weren't a very good team for a little while after they lost their quarterback early in the year, but they figured it out. And I do like the Aggies. They burned me a couple times before this year, but I'm going back to that well. All right, the rest of our picks, Devin, up to $2,500, up 25% over the beginning of the year. What have you got for us this week?
Yeah, so I talked about the Utah Stanford total. I think it's going to go under 54. Talked about this earlier in the week. Ole Miss versus Liberty. Line is still 9.5 in favor of Ole Miss. I'm still taking it. I think Ole Miss is in. I know it's Hugh Freeze. He's coming back to play his old team, but Liberty just doesn't have the talent to match up with Ole Miss. Position by position. But I think it'll be a fun game. I just think Ole Miss will win by a couple touchdowns. So I took that game. Took Florida against South Carolina. South Carolina hasn't been great this year. Florida really needs a big win. Dan Mullen is, I won't say on a hot seat, but people are definitely questioning whether
he's had a bad week.
Yeah,
that man has had a bad week.
Yeah, he hasn't had a good week. So he needs his team to play well against South Carolina. I think Florida will do enough to cover.
That should say -18.5, by the way.
I was going to say, Devin's that good. He gets those kinds of lines.
Florida needs to win that game by 19 points. I just want to make that clear. And then the next one, Indiana is +20 against Michigan. So I'm 0 for 2 on those two, but just transpose those. It's Florida -18.5, Indiana +20.
Right. And then finally, the Chiefs, I just like them 7.5 point favorites against the Packers. No Aaron Rodgers. I know Chiefs have been incredibly disappointing. I mean, they didn't even look good on Monday night against the Giants. Barely squeaked out the win. But I think I don't want to say this is a game that they kind of get back to a normal, but I think this is the game that they're like, we still have a potent offense. We can still win games, big games, even if, there's no Aaron Rodgers. But I think the Chiefs, I like them this week against the Packers. I think they win by at least 10.
Yeah, with no Aaron Rodgers, that line jumped way up. And I personally am not going to touch it because that line's crazy to me. But I can see where you're coming from there. And I will, by the way, as the guru of big bucks, I'm making an adjustment here and going to give you Florida minus 18 because that's what Jim took it at. So just so you guys have the same, I'll put it the right way for both of you and make it Florida minus 18. So Jim, you go ahead.
Yeah.
How much you got there, buddy? You're still down 25%. Oh,
considering where I was, it's a marked improvement. I told you, lulling out of sleep. This is 3 straight really good weeks for me. And we're going to make it 4 this week because I really like a lot of my picks. It's kind of an underdog type week. If you look at the board here, I have no idea why Wake Forest is getting points from North Carolina. North Carolina showed me nothing in Wake. I don't think North Carolina can stop Wake Forest. I'd like to hear what Devin says on that. We can talk about it off the air, I guess. Florida, I agree 100% with Devin that they don't need to just win. I think they're looking to win with style points, and South Carolina's terrible. So this is a perfect spot for them. If you go down, I've already talked about my Saints Falcons under pick. It was under 42.5 when I put this in. It may be 42 now. It's going to keep on dropping. So if you like that, you need to take it now to probably 41 by the time the game starts. And then a couple other ones that I like. The parlay with 49ers and the 49ers under. The last time they played, it was 17-10 just a few weeks ago. Now Kyler Murray's not playing. I think this is a great spot for the 49ers, who haven't went home yet, by the way. This is a great spot for them to come in, and maybe they start making a little bit of a run. And I think they're going to do it with defense as well. So I've got a lot going on here with 49ers. I like them to win straight up. And then I took them in a parlay with the under. So try to win a little bit there. We already talked about my teaser with the Dolphins and Steelers. And then the Browns, look, the Bengals are starting to look. They have that one game. I know it's just the Jets, and you throw it out, and everybody can have a stinker. But the Browns, I think, are in a position to where they really have to win. I mean, they have to win, or they're starting to fade in oblivion. And now all the stuff with OBJ, and I think that distraction is actually not going to be as big of a distraction as you think, because having him not at practice kind of keeps the distraction away. I think the Browns are in for a good week. They match up well with the Bengals. They can run the ball against this average Bengals Russian defense, and I think they will be able to throw it as well. So I really like the Browns there as well.
All right, my picks. We got to turn this around because I was over 2,000. I was plus for the year just a couple of weeks ago, and it's been ugly 3 weeks in a row. So we got at some point it's got to turn around. And I do actually have some picks the same as you guys. I went with San Jose State just like you did, Devin. I went Saints Falcons under, Jim, and I also have the 49ers on the money line. Now, a couple of other picks I got the Eagles on the money line against the Chargers, and I still think the Eagles are being undervalued. I thought so last week. They got a big win in Detroit. The Chargers are traveling cross country. I know people are down on the Eagles. I don't think they're a great team, but I think they're good enough, possibly to win that game. The Rams, I actually like. They were only minus 4.5 or 5, but I liked them before Derrick Henry went out, and before they got Von Miller, and so I do think that that's a fair price, and I think the Rams could win that game pretty easily. The Titans are salty though. We'll see. They'll fight for Mike Vrabel, and then the one place where I sort of faded you guys was Bears Steelers. I still think you're okay on that teaser because I think the Steelers probably win the game. But I think the Bears give them trouble. I think they're the type of team, Justin Fields figuring it out a little bit, and they play good enough defense against a sort of a one-dimensional offense to where they could certainly keep that game close.
What has Justin Fields figured out?
It.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, I mean, he looked much better. He looked much better last week.
He had one great run, but other than that, I'm not sure what he looked good at.
Who's the better quarterback, Justin Fields or Ben Roethlisberger right now?
Oh, it's unquestionably Ben Roethlisberger. It's not even close.
I don't know, man.
Justin Fields might be the worst quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he's a great runner, but he's never going to be an NFL. 3 years from now, no one will mention Justin Fields' name at all, except maybe in a trivia question.
Devin, is Sam Darnold still in the NFL? He's still in the NFL.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson's still in the NFL.
PJ Walker's playing for Carolina this week.
Yeah, PJ Walker. You're saying Justin Fields is worse than PJ Walker?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Justin Fields can't throw it from here to this door without finding a defender.
Wow.
He went to Ohio State.
You're a Chicago guy, man. How can you say this?
Name me a good Ohio State quarterback. Arch Schleister.
I mean, you're going back that far. It's not really fair to Justin Fields, though. He's different from those guys.
I mean, to that argument, I mean, who has LSU produced before Joe Burrow? I mean, the quarterback.
I'm not talking
argument,
about LSU.
I know,
but his point is that you can't use the past as the reason why Justin Fields is not going to be any good. He doesn't have.
Well, it
anything
wasn't
to do
that
with
long ago, and I'm not saying he was a good quarterback because he wasn't, but it wasn't that long ago that the first pick in the NFL draft was an LSU quarterback.
That's right, and he was terrible, but that didn't stop anybody from thinking Joe Burrow was going to be good. So,
well, I mean, if you want to talk about LSU quarterbacks, we go Burt Jones. He was pretty good. If you want to go back in lore, you go back beyond that, and I mean, who cares? I mean,
it doesn't it doesn't matter.
It does matter because Ohio State doesn't get good quarterbacks, and that make it in the NFL, and he's not a good quarterback. Tell me one thing that makes him a good quarterback besides that he can run the football. Make him a running back.
I mean,
name me one good game he's had. He's now halfway.
Is Jalen Hurts a bad quarterback?
Jalen Hurts is nothing special. No.
I mean, he's not terrible.
I'd much rather Jalen Hurts than Justin Fields.
I'm just saying. I think they're comparable players. I don't think Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the NFL, but I think he could be a comparable player to Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Well, maybe 3 years from now, we're not talking about either one of them.
Yeah,
I think
possible.
I'm just saying, when you get midway through the season, and now you're talking about he started every game except for 2, I believe, and he has been probably the reason why they've lost at least 2 or 3 of those games.
I think you're just mad the Bears didn't cover last week.
No, I mean, yeah, of course I'm mad at the Bears didn't cover. I don't like the Bears. I hate the fact that I picked the Bears. It upset me all day that you actually made this one of your best bets of the week that you picked the Bears, because I think the Bears are terrible. And I'm trying to just figure out why I did that. But they're not good at running back. They're not that great in defense when Khalil Mack doesn't play.
We got Jim Derry yelling at a cloud now, so I think it's time for us to go. We talked a little 2022 World Series. We talked LSU, Alabama, Saints, Falcons, where the Saints go from here, and of course our big Bucks picks. We also talked to James Carville for this week's edition of Cashin' In with Carville. This has been At the Book for Thursday, November 4th. For Devin Jackson and Jim Derry, I'm Zach Ewing. We got to get out of here. We'll see you next time, everybody.